The Tortoise and the Hare. A slow tortoise and a speedy hare race, learning teamwork, resilience, and friendship, proving persistence triumphs over arrogance. Chapter 1: The Challenge. In a sunny meadow surrounded by tall trees, there lived a hare named Hare. Hare was known for his incredible speed. He could run faster than any animal in the forest. Hare loved to show off his talent. "I am the fastest in the whole forest," Hare often said loudly. The other animals nodded but sometimes felt annoyed by his constant bragging. Nearby, a tortoise named Tina was listening. Tina was slow and steady. She moved at her own pace and didn't rush for anything. Tina didn't like Hare's arrogance. Speed isn't everything, Tina thought to herself. Tina decided to speak up. She approached Hare with a calm and determined look. "Hare," she said, "I hear you think you're the fastest in the forest." Hare laughed. "Of course I am. Everyone knows that." Tina smiled. "Then prove it," she said. "I challenge you to a race." The other animals gasped. A race between the speedy hare and the slow tortoise? It seemed impossible for Tina to win. Hare laughed even louder. "You? Race me? That's a joke." Tina stood her ground. "I may be slow, but I believe I can win," she said. Her voice was calm but firm. The animals gathered around, curious about what would happen next. That night, Tina sat quietly under a tree. She thought about the race and stayed positive. "I may not be fast, but I can be steady and determined," she told herself. Meanwhile, Hare lounged in his burrow. "This will be the easiest race of my life," he said, feeling confident. He didn't even practice or think about a plan. The next morning, the sun rose brightly over the meadow. The animals gathered at the starting line. There was a buzz of excitement in the air. "Who do you think will win?" whispered a rabbit. "Hare, of course," replied a squirrel. "Tina is too slow." Hare and Tina stood at the starting line. Tina looked calm, while Hare looked amused. Mrs. Owl, the wisest animal in the forest, flew down to start the race. "On your marks," she said. "Get set. Go." Hare shot off like a flash of lightning. The animals cheered as he sped down the path, leaving Tina far behind. But Tina didn't panic. She took her first step slowly and steadily. "Step by step, I will finish the race," she thought. Hare ran so fast that he soon reached the middle of the racecourse. He looked back and saw that Tina was far behind. "This is too easy," Hare said to himself. "I have time to rest." He found a shady tree and sat down. "I'll take a quick nap," he thought. "Tina will never catch up." Tina, however, kept moving. Step by step, she walked along the path. She didn't stop to rest or look back. The animals watched in amazement. "Tina is so steady," said a fox. "She's determined," agreed a deer. Meanwhile, Hare slept soundly under the tree. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and Tina kept going. Finally, Tina reached the place where Hare was sleeping. She saw him lying under the tree, snoring softly. "I must keep going," Tina thought. She walked past him quietly and continued toward the finish line. When Hare woke up, he stretched and yawned. He looked around and laughed. "Tina must still be far behind," he said. He started running again, confident he could still win. But as he approached the finish line, he saw something that shocked him. Tina was already there, crossing the line. The animals cheered loudly. "Tina wins," they shouted. Hare stopped in his tracks, his mouth wide open. "How did this happen?" he asked. Tina smiled at him. "You were fast, Hare, but I was steady," she said. "Sometimes, slow and steady wins the race." The animals gathered around Tina, celebrating her victory. Even Hare couldn't help but smile. "You taught me an important lesson, Tina," Hare said. I won't underestimate anyone again. Tina nodded. And I learned that believing in yourself can lead to great things. From that day on, Hare became more humble, and the animals admired Tina's determination. The forest was filled with laughter and joy as the animals celebrated the surprising outcome of the race. And so, the story of Hare and Tina became a favorite tale in the meadow, reminding everyone that speed isn't always the key to success. Chapter 2: The Race is Set. The news of the race spread quickly through the forest. Every animal was talking about it. Did you hear? Tina the tortoise is racing Hare the hare, said a squirrel to her friend. It's going to be an easy win for Hare, replied a rabbit. He's so fast. By the next morning, all the animals had gathered to watch the race. The meadow was buzzing with excitement. Birds sat on tree branches, and rabbits hopped around, chatting. Even the fish in the nearby stream peeked out to see what was happening. Who do you think will win? A deer asked her fawn. Hare, of course, the fawn answered confidently. In the center of the meadow, Tina and Hare stood at the starting line. Hare was hopping in place, full of energy. He laughed as he looked at Tina. You think you can beat me, Tina? Hare asked, his voice full of confidence. I'll be at the finish line before you even start. Tina didn't let his words bother her. She stayed calm and focused. Let's see who finishes first, she replied softly but firmly. The wise old owl, Oliver, flew down from his perch in the tallest tree. Oliver was respected by all the animals. He had seen many races in his long life and was chosen to be the judge. Welcome, everyone, Oliver said in his deep voice. Today, we will witness a special race between Hare the hare and Tina the tortoise. The crowd cheered. Oliver spread his wings and pointed to a path that wound through the forest. The race will follow this path and end at the big oak tree, he explained. The first to touch the tree wins. Hare smirked. This will be over in no time, he said. Tina said nothing. She took a deep breath and prepared herself. Oliver raised his wing. On your marks, he said. Hare crouched low, ready to spring forward. Tina took her position, slow and steady. Get set, Oliver continued. The crowd grew quiet. Go, shouted Oliver, and the race began. Hare shot off like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, he was far ahead. The animals cheered and clapped as he disappeared down the path. Hare is so fast, said a young squirrel. He'll win for sure, agreed a rabbit. Meanwhile, Tina took her first step. She moved slowly, but with purpose. She didn't rush or try to compete with Hare's speed. Go, Tina, shouted a bird from the crowd. She's so calm, said a fox. I admire her determination. As Hare raced ahead, he felt the wind rush past his long ears. This is too easy, he said to himself. He looked back, but couldn't see Tina anywhere. This isn't even a challenge, Hare thought. I'll take a little break. He found a shady spot under a tree and sat down. I'll rest here for a while, he said. Tina will take forever to catch up. Back on the path, Tina kept going. Step by step, she moved forward. She didn't stop to rest or look around. She focused only on the finish line. The animals along the path cheered for her. You can do it, Tina, they shouted. Thank you, Tina said politely, but she didn't slow down. The sun climbed higher in the sky as the race continued. Hare, still under the tree, yawned and stretched. He felt relaxed. I'll give her a head start, he thought with a grin. It won't make a difference. Tina, meanwhile, reached the halfway point of the race. She saw Hare sleeping under the tree but didn't say anything. She quietly passed him and continued toward the finish line. The crowd near the big oak tree grew excited. They could see Tina slowly approaching. Is that Tina? Asked a rabbit in disbelief. It is, said a bird. She's almost at the finish line. Hare finally woke up. He stretched his legs and looked around. Time to finish this race, he said confidently. But when he looked ahead, he saw Tina far down the path. What? Hare shouted. How did she get so far ahead? He jumped to his feet and started running as fast as he could. The animals watched in suspense. Can Hare catch up? They wondered. Tina was just a few steps away from the oak tree. She moved steadily, her eyes on the goal. Hare ran faster and faster, but it was too late. Tina reached out and touched the oak tree with her front leg. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tina wins, they shouted. Hare skidded to a stop, just a few steps behind her. He looked at Tina in disbelief. How did you do it? Hare asked, panting. Tina smiled. I may be slow, but I kept going, she said. Step by step, I made it to the finish line. The animals surrounded Tina, congratulating her. You were amazing, Tina, said a squirrel. You taught us all a lesson, said Oliver, the wise owl. Hare hung his head. I was too confident, he admitted. I thought speed was all that mattered. Tina looked at him kindly. Speed is important, Hare, but so is perseverance. Sometimes, slow and steady wins the race. Hare nodded. You're right, Tina. I've learned something valuable today. The animals cheered for both competitors, celebrating the exciting race. From that day on, Hare became more humble, and Tina became an inspiration to everyone in the forest. The story of their race was told again and again, teaching animals of all kinds the value of determination and humility. Chapter 3: The Fast Start. The race began with great excitement. The animals cheered loudly as Hare dashed forward. He was like a flash of lightning, his powerful legs carrying him far ahead. I am going to win this easily, Hare thought to himself, grinning as he ran. Behind him, Tina took her first step. She moved slowly but steadily. Her small legs carried her forward, one step at a time. The crowd along the race path cheered for both racers. Go, Hare, shouted a squirrel. Keep going, Tina, a bird called out. Hare turned to look back. He saw Tina far behind, moving at her slow and steady pace. He laughed. This is going to be so easy, he said. As he raced ahead, Hare felt confident. The wind rushed through his fur, and the trees blurred as he zoomed past them. He glanced back again and saw that Tina was still far away. I'm way ahead, Hare said to himself. I don't even have to try. He looked around and noticed a soft patch of grass under a shady tree. This is a good spot for a rest, he thought. Hare stopped running and sat down under the tree. He stretched out his legs and leaned back. I'll take a short break, he said. I have plenty of time. Meanwhile, Tina kept moving. She didn't look around or worry about how far ahead Hare was. Instead, she focused on the path in front of her. Step by step, Tina walked. The crowd clapped for her as she passed. You're doing great, Tina, shouted a deer. Tina nodded politely but didn't stop. She knew she wasn't fast, but she believed in herself. I can do this, she thought. I just need to keep going. The sun climbed higher in the sky, shining brightly on the meadow. Hare, still under the tree, yawned. I'll just close my eyes for a minute, he said. He lay down on the grass and closed his eyes. The gentle breeze and the soft sounds of the forest made him feel sleepy. Before long, Hare was snoring peacefully. Back on the path, Tina continued her journey. Her steps were small, but they were steady. The animals along the way cheered her on. Tina is so focused, said a rabbit. She's determined, agreed a fox. As Tina moved forward, she passed beautiful flowers, tall trees, and chirping birds. She smiled but didn't stop to admire them. She kept her eyes on the finish line. The crowd at the finish line grew more excited. They could see Tina coming closer. "Is that Tina?" asked a rabbit in disbelief. "Yes, it is," said a bird. "She's still moving." Meanwhile, Harry woke up from his nap. He stretched and looked around. "Time to finish this race," he said, feeling confident. He stood up and began to run. The path ahead looked clear, and he didn't see Tina anywhere. She must still be far behind, he thought. But as Harry ran closer to the finish line, he saw something that shocked him. Tina was already there, just a few steps away from touching the big oak tree. "What?" Harry shouted. "How did this happen?" He ran as fast as he could, but it was too late. Tina reached the oak tree and touched it with her front leg. The crowd erupted in cheers. "Tina wins," they shouted. Harry stopped just short of the tree, panting and wide-eyed. "This can't be real," he said. Tina turned to Harry and smiled. "You were fast, Harry, but I didn't stop," she said. "I kept moving toward the finish line." The animals surrounded Tina, celebrating her victory. "You did it, Tina," shouted a squirrel. "We're so proud of you," said a bird. Harry hung his head. "I was too confident," he admitted. "I thought speed was all that mattered." Tina nodded. "Speed is important, but so is determination," she said. "Sometimes, slow and steady wins the race." Harry smiled at Tina. "You've taught me a valuable lesson," he said. "I'll remember this." The animals cheered for both competitors, celebrating the exciting race and the lessons it brought. Chapter 4: The Nap Time. After racing ahead with great speed, Harry reached a large, shady tree. The tree's leaves rustled softly in the breeze, and the grass beneath it looked cool and inviting. "This is the perfect spot for a quick nap," Harry thought. He lay down under the tree and stretched out his legs. "I'll just rest for a few minutes," he said to himself. "Tina is so slow. She'll take hours to catch up." Harry closed his eyes, feeling confident. The warm sun and gentle breeze made him feel relaxed. Soon, he was snoring softly, completely unaware of the race. Meanwhile, Tina kept going. She didn't worry about where Harry was or how far ahead he had been. Instead, she focused on each step she took. Her small feet moved steadily along the path. The animals watching the race were surprised. "Look at Harry," said a squirrel. "He's taking a nap in the middle of the race." "He thinks he has already won," said a rabbit. "But Tina is still moving," whispered a bird. "She doesn't stop." The crowd began to talk quietly among themselves. Will Harry wake up in time? They wondered. Tina passed a group of cheering animals. "Keep going, Tina," they shouted. "Thank you," Tina replied with a smile, but she didn't stop. She knew the finish line was still far away. Back under the tree, Harry continued to nap. His dreams were filled with images of victory. He imagined himself crossing the finish line with all the animals cheering his name. "Harry, the fastest in the forest," he mumbled in his sleep. The sun moved higher in the sky, and time passed. Tina kept her steady pace. She climbed small hills and crossed narrow streams. She didn't rush, but she didn't stop either. "She's determined," said a fox, watching from the side of the path. "She may be slow, but she's focused," added a deer. As Tina walked, she saw the big oak tree in the distance. It was the finish line. Her heart filled with hope. "I'm getting closer," she thought. The crowd near the finish line started to notice her. "Is that Tina?" asked a young rabbit. "Yes, it is," said a bird flying overhead. "She's almost there." The animals grew excited. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Meanwhile, Harry finally stirred. He opened his eyes and yawned. The sun was now high in the sky, and he realized he had been asleep for longer than he planned. He sat up and looked around. "Where am I in the race?" he wondered. Then he remembered. Oh no! Harry exclaimed. He jumped to his feet and looked down the path. In the distance, he saw Tina nearing the finish line. How did this happen? Harry shouted. He began running as fast as he could, hoping to catch up. The animals along the path cheered and shouted. Harry is awake, they said. Can he make it in time? Others wondered. Harry ran with all his might. His powerful legs moved like lightning, and the wind rushed past his ears. But Tina was just a few steps away from the oak tree. She didn't look back. Her eyes stayed on the finish line. Harry closed the distance quickly, but it wasn't enough. Tina reached out with her front leg and touched the oak tree. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tina wins, they shouted. Harry skidded to a stop, just a step behind her. He was panting and out of breath. How did you do it? Harry asked, still shocked. Tina turned to him and smiled. I may be slow, but I never stopped, she said. Step by step, I made it to the finish line. The animals surrounded Tina, celebrating her victory. You were amazing, Tina, said a squirrel. You taught us all a lesson, said a wise old owl. Harry hung his head. I was too confident, he admitted. I thought speed was all that mattered. Tina looked at him kindly. Speed is important, Harry, but so is perseverance. Sometimes, slow and steady wins the race. Harry nodded. You're right, Tina. I've learned something valuable today. The animals cheered for both competitors, celebrating the exciting race and the lessons it brought. Chapter 5, Tina's Determined Journey. Tina walked past the shady tree where Harry was sleeping. She saw him resting under the branches and smiled to herself. I may be slow, but I won't give up, Tina said softly. Her voice was calm, but her heart was full of determination. She kept moving, one small step at a time. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting warm rays over the forest. The path ahead was long, but Tina didn't feel tired. She focused on her goal, the big oak tree that marked the finish line. The animals along the path watched her. Look at Tina, said a rabbit. She hasn't stopped, added a squirrel. She's steady and strong, said a fox. Tina felt proud of her progress. She smiled at the cheering animals, but didn't stop to talk. Her eyes stayed on the path. I can do this, she thought. One step at a time. The meadow was full of life. Birds sang in the trees, and butterflies danced among the flowers. Tina noticed the beauty around her, but she didn't let it distract her. Stay focused, she reminded herself. Back under the tree, Harry was still asleep. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and the soft grass made his nap comfortable. He dreamed of crossing the finish line, imagining the cheers of the crowd. But while Harry slept, Tina moved steadily forward. She climbed a small hill, her tiny legs working hard. She crossed a narrow stream, careful not to slip on the wet rocks. The crowd near the finish line began to notice Tina's progress. Is that Tina? Asked a deer. Yes. She's getting closer, said a bird. The animals started to cheer louder. Go, Tina, they shouted. Tina heard their cheers and felt encouraged. Her steps became even more confident. Meanwhile, Harry stirred under the tree. He opened his eyes and stretched his legs. That was a good nap, he said with a yawn. He looked around and remembered the race. Oh no! Harry exclaimed. Where is Tina? He jumped to his feet and scanned the path. In the distance, he saw Tina walking steadily toward the oak tree. I can't believe this, Harry said. He started running, his powerful legs moving quickly. The animals along the path gasped. Harry is awake, they said. Can he catch up? Wondered a squirrel. Tina heard the commotion but didn't look back. She stayed focused on the finish line. I've come this far, she thought. I won't stop now. Hare ran as fast as he could, but Tina was close to the oak tree. The animals at the finish line cheered loudly. "She's almost there," shouted a rabbit. "Go, Tina, go," yelled a bird. Tina's heart raced with excitement. She could see the big oak tree just a few steps away. Hare was getting closer, but Tina didn't panic. She stayed calm and took her final steps toward the finish line. With one last stride, Tina touched the oak tree with her front leg. The crowd erupted in cheers. "Tina wins," they shouted. Hare skidded to a stop just behind her. He was out of breath and wide-eyed. "How did this happen?" he asked. Tina turned to him with a kind smile. "I didn't stop," she said. "I kept moving forward, one step at a time." The animals surrounded Tina, congratulating her on her victory. "You showed us the power of perseverance," said the wise old owl. "Thank you," Tina said, feeling proud and happy. Hare nodded slowly. "I underestimated you, Tina," he admitted. "You've taught me an important lesson." Tina looked at Hare and said, "It's not just about speed, Hare. It's about focus, determination, and never giving up." The crowd cheered for both competitors, celebrating the excitement of the race and the lessons it taught. From that day on, Tina became a symbol of determination in the forest. Her steady steps and quiet strength inspired everyone. The story of the race was told for generations, reminding young animals that slow and steady can truly win the race. Chapter 6: The Wake-Up Call. Hare woke up under the shady tree after a long nap. The warm sun was shining brightly, and a gentle breeze tickled his fur. He stretched his legs and let out a big yawn. "That was a nice nap," Hare said, smiling to himself. He sat up and looked around. The forest was quiet, and he couldn't see anyone else on the path. "I should finish this race," he said confidently. Hare stood up and dusted himself off. "I must be far ahead," he thought, remembering how quickly he had dashed ahead of Tina earlier. There's no way she could have caught up. Feeling sure of his victory, Hare began to run. His legs moved fast, and he felt the wind rush past his long ears. As he got closer to the finish line, Hare heard noises in the distance. It sounded like cheering. "That must be for me," he thought proudly. The sound grew louder as Hare approached the meadow where the big oak tree stood. He smiled, imagining the crowd celebrating his win. "I'm the fastest in the forest," he said to himself. But as he ran closer, he noticed something strange. The cheering wasn't for him. He saw the crowd of animals gathered near the oak tree. They were clapping, laughing, and shouting Tina's name. "Tina wins," they cried. "She did it." Hare skidded to a stop. His jaw dropped as he saw Tina standing by the tree, smiling and surrounded by happy animals. "How is this possible?" Hare said, his voice full of disbelief. He walked slowly toward the finish line, still trying to understand what had happened. Tina saw Hare and smiled kindly. "Hello, Hare," she said. "You won?" Hare asked, his eyes wide. "Yes," Tina replied. "I kept going while you were napping." Hare looked at her, feeling embarrassed. "I thought I had plenty of time," he admitted. The wise old owl, Oliver, stepped forward. "Hare, you are fast, but speed alone isn't enough," he said. "Tina taught us all that determination and focus are just as important." The crowd nodded in agreement. "She never stopped," said a rabbit. "She kept her eyes on the finish line," added a squirrel. Hare lowered his head. "I was too confident," he said softly. Tina placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We all make mistakes, Hare," she said. "What matters is that we learn from them." Hare stepped closer to the oak tree and touched it. "Even though I didn't win, I'm glad I finished," he said. The wise owl hooted proudly. "That's the spirit, Hare. Every race teaches us something valuable." Hare looked at Tina and smiled. "Thank you, Tina," he said. You taught me an important lesson today. The crowd cheered again, this time for both Tina and Hare. Great race, they shouted. The celebration continued, and Hare realized that winning wasn't everything. He had learned the value of perseverance, humility, and effort. From that day on, Hare became a better competitor. He still ran fast, but he also stayed focused and respected the effort of others. Tina, meanwhile, became a hero in the forest. Her steady determination inspired animals of all ages. The story of their race was told over and over, reminding everyone that success comes not just from speed but from dedication and heart. Chapter 7: The Final Stretch. Tina kept moving steadily. Her small legs pushed forward one step at a time. She could see the big oak tree now. It was the finish line. The animals gathered near the oak tree cheered loudly. Go, Tina, go, they shouted. Tina felt their support, and her heart swelled with pride. She didn't look back. She stayed focused on her goal. Hare was still napping under the shady tree. But the loud cheers woke him up. He opened his eyes and stretched. What's all that noise, he wondered. Then he remembered the race. Oh no! Hare exclaimed. The race! I must finish. Hare jumped up and looked around. He didn't see Tina anywhere. I must still be ahead, he thought. He started running as fast as he could toward the finish line. The path to the oak tree was long and winding, but Hare's legs were strong and fast. He ran so quickly that dust kicked up behind him. As Hare got closer, he heard the cheering get louder. But something didn't feel right. The cheers weren't for him. Go, Tina, the crowd roared. Hare's eyes widened in shock. He could see Tina now. She was almost at the finish line. No way, he shouted. Hare pushed himself to run faster. I can still win, he thought. Tina, however, didn't panic. She stayed calm and steady. Her eyes were on the oak tree. Just a little more, she whispered to herself. The animals cheered louder. She's almost there, said a rabbit. Can Hare catch up? Asked a squirrel. Tina's heart was beating fast. She felt excited and proud. I'm going to finish, she thought. Hare was getting closer, but it was too late. Tina reached out her small leg and touched the oak tree. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tina wins, they shouted. Tina smiled, feeling proud of her effort. She had done it. She had finished the race. Hare skidded to a stop just a few steps behind her. He was out of breath and looked surprised. How did this happen? He asked. The wise old owl, Oliver, stepped forward. Hare, Tina showed us all that slow and steady wins the race, he said. Hare looked at Tina and said, You really did it. I thought I would win because I'm fast. Tina smiled kindly. It's not just about being fast, Hare. It's about not giving up, she said. The crowd cheered for both Tina and Hare. They celebrated Tina's victory and Hare's effort to finish the race. The wise owl raised his wing and said, Today we learned an important lesson. Perseverance and focus are just as important as speed. Hare nodded. I'll remember that, he said. From that day on, Hare and Tina became good friends. They often raced together, but now Hare understood the value of determination and steady effort. The animals in the forest told the story of Tina's victory for years to come. It inspired young animals to believe in themselves and never give up, no matter how slow they might be. And so, the lesson of the final stretch was shared, reminding everyone that success is not always about being the fastest. It's about finishing the race with heart and determination. Chapter 8: The Finish Line. Tina's legs were tired, but her heart was strong. She could see the big oak tree ahead of her. It marked the finish line of the race. The crowd of animals gathered near the finish line saw her approaching. Go, Tina, go, they shouted excitedly. Tina didn't slow down. She took one final step toward the oak tree. With a big smile on her face, she touched the tree with her front leg. "I did it!" Tina shouted with joy. The crowd cheered loudly. The animals clapped their paws, hooves, and wings. "Hooray for Tina," they cheered. "She won the race." Tina felt proud of herself. She had kept going, even when the path was hard. She had never given up. Meanwhile, Hare was still running. He had woken up late and had run as fast as he could, but it was too late. Tina had already crossed the finish line. Hare was out of breath. His legs felt heavy, and he was sweating. He skidded to a stop just a few steps behind Tina. He looked at the cheering crowd and then at Tina, who was smiling. "How could this happen?" Hare asked, shocked. "I'm the fastest in the forest. I should have won." Tina turned to Hare with a kind smile. "I didn't win because I'm fast," she said. "I won because I didn't give up." Just then, Oliver the wise old owl flew down from a nearby tree. He had been watching the race the whole time. He perched on a low branch and looked down at Hare. "You underestimated Tina, Hare," Oliver said wisely. "She may not be fast, but she was steady and focused. Slow and steady wins the race." Hare stood still for a moment. He was quiet, thinking about what Oliver had said. "I thought speed was everything," Hare admitted. "But now I see that it's not just about being fast. It's about finishing strong." Tina nodded. "That's right, Hare. It's not about how fast you go. It's about not giving up, even when things get tough." The animals cheered again, not just for Tina, but for both her and Hare. They had learned something important that day. Hare smiled and walked over to Tina. "You were amazing, Tina," he said. "I've learned a valuable lesson. It's not always about winning. It's about trying your best." Tina smiled back. "Thank you, Hare. You were great too. You never gave up, even though I was ahead." Oliver hooted proudly. "Today, we learned the most important lesson of all: never give up, no matter how slow you may be. Every effort counts." The race was over, but the lesson would stay with everyone in the forest. From that day on, animals of all shapes and sizes learned to keep going, no matter how hard the path seemed. Hare and Tina became good friends. They often raced together, but now Hare didn't just want to win. He wanted to finish the race with effort and perseverance. The animals often gathered to tell the story of the race. It became a reminder that success isn't just about being the fastest. It's about trying your best and never giving up. And so, the race ended, but the lesson lived on. It was a lesson about courage, determination, and the power of persistence. Chapter 9: The Lesson Learned. Hare stood still, feeling embarrassed. He had been so sure that he would win. Now, he realized that he had made a big mistake. He had underestimated Tina. "I should have taken Tina seriously," Hare thought to himself. His fast legs had helped him in the past, but today, they hadn't been enough. Tina smiled at Hare kindly. She could see that he was upset. "It's okay, Hare," she said softly. "We all have our strengths." Hare looked at Tina and nodded. She was right. He had been too proud of his speed. He had thought that being fast was the only thing that mattered. But now he understood that determination and effort were just as important. Tina's victory was celebrated by all the animals in the forest. They gathered around her, clapping and cheering. "Hooray for Tina," they shouted. "She won the race." The animals cheered even louder than before, not just for Tina's victory, but because they had learned something important that day. The wise old owl, Oliver, perched on a branch above them. He had been watching the race and listening to the animals. "Today, we learned a valuable lesson," Oliver said. "It's not always the fastest who wins. It's the one who keeps going, no matter what." The crowd murmured in agreement. The animals had seen how Tina had stayed focused and steady throughout the race. Even though she wasn't as fast as Hare, she never stopped. Hare walked up to Tina. "I've learned something today," he said, looking at her with respect. "You were steady, and you didn't give up. That's why you won." Tina smiled. "Thank you, Hare. You were fast, and you didn't give up either. It was a good race, and we both learned from it." The animals continued to cheer for Tina. They saw how she had shown that effort and persistence were just as important as speed. As the sun began to set, the animals gathered for a big celebration. They shared food and stories, talking about the race and what they had learned. They realized that every animal had something special to offer. "I will never forget this race," said a rabbit. "It showed me that I don't need to be the fastest to be proud of my effort." A squirrel agreed. "It's not about being the best. It's about trying your best." Oliver the owl flew down to join the celebration. "Today, we learned that every effort counts," he said. "It's about staying determined and never giving up." Hare looked around at the animals. "I'm proud of Tina," he said. "She taught me an important lesson today. It's not just about winning. It's about finishing strong." Tina blushed and said, "I couldn't have done it without the support of everyone here. We all helped each other." The animals nodded, agreeing with Tina. They realized that no one could win a race alone. Whether you were fast or slow, it was important to support one another and celebrate each other's strengths. As the night grew darker, the animals continued to talk and laugh. They shared stories and memories of the race. They knew they would remember this day for a long time. The story of Tina's victory spread across the forest. It became a reminder to all the animals that success wasn't just about speed. It was about trying your best, staying focused, and never giving up. Hare, too, became a better animal after the race. He still ran fast, but now he knew that it wasn't enough to be the fastest. He needed to be determined and steady, just like Tina. From that day on, the animals in the forest didn't just celebrate speed. They celebrated effort, determination, and the willingness to keep going, no matter how hard the path seemed. And so, the lesson of the race was shared throughout the forest. It was a lesson about courage, perseverance, and the true meaning of success. Chapter 10: A New Friendship. After the race, Hare stood still for a moment. He had learned an important lesson, and now he wanted to do something about it. He looked at Tina, who was surrounded by the other animals, still smiling and receiving their congratulations. Hare took a deep breath and walked over to Tina. His heart was pounding, but he was determined. "Can we be friends?" he asked, his voice soft but sincere. Tina looked up at Hare, surprised but happy. She smiled and nodded. "Of course. We can learn from each other," she said warmly. Hare felt a sense of relief. He had been worried that Tina might not want to be his friend after everything that had happened. But Tina didn't hold any grudges. She understood that everyone had room to grow and learn. From that day on, Hare and Tina became good friends. They spent more time together, and soon, they started to train together. Hare would race ahead, showing Tina how to run faster. Tina, in turn, taught Hare how to be patient and steady, reminding him to focus on his goal instead of rushing. They made a great team. They worked together, combining Hare's speed and Tina's determination. Tina helped Hare see that sometimes rushing ahead wasn't the best way. Hare helped Tina feel proud of the progress she made, even if it was slow. One day, they decided to run a small race together. "Let's see how well we can work as a team," Hare suggested. Tina smiled. "Yes. We don't need to race against each other. We can race together and support one another." The animals gathered to watch their race. The wise owl, Oliver, stood by as the judge. "This will be an interesting race," Oliver said. "Hare's speed and Tina's determination will make for a great match." At the start, Hare and Tina set off side by side. Hare ran fast, but he made sure to check on Tina every now and then, making sure she was okay. Tina kept her steady pace, always moving forward with focus. They encouraged each other as they ran. "You're doing great, Tina," Hare called out. "You're fast, Hare. Let's keep going," Tina cheered back. Together, they reached the finish line. The crowd cheered loudly, not just for the race, but for the new friendship that had blossomed between the two. "That was amazing," Tina said, panting with joy. Hare smiled. "We did it together. We make a great team." Oliver the owl flew down to congratulate them. "You two have shown us the true meaning of teamwork," he said. "It's not about winning alone. It's about helping each other and working together." From then on, Hare and Tina trained and raced together. They helped each other improve in ways they never could have alone. Hare learned that sometimes slowing down and being steady was just as important as being fast. Tina learned that it was okay to push herself a little faster when needed. The animals in the forest looked up to Hare and Tina. They saw how the two of them had turned their differences into strengths. They had taught everyone that true friendship and teamwork were about supporting each other, no matter how different they were. As the days passed, Hare and Tina became the best of friends. They helped each other every day, whether it was in training or just spending time together. They realized that they didn't have to be the best at everything, but they could be the best team. The story of Hare and Tina's friendship spread throughout the forest. It became a tale that was shared from one animal to another. They showed that no matter how fast or slow you are, you can always learn from each other. As the days passed, Hare and Tina became the best of friends. They helped each other every day, whether it was in training or just spending time together. They realized that they didn't have to be the best at everything, but they could be the best team. The story of Hare and Tina's friendship spread throughout the forest. It became a tale that was shared from one animal to another. They showed that no matter how fast or slow you are, you can always learn from each other. From that moment, they knew that their friendship was something special. It was built on trust, respect, and the desire to help each other become better. And so, Hare and Tina's story became a reminder to all the animals in the forest: true friendship is about working together, learning from each other, and always supporting one another, no matter what. Chapter 11: The Next Challenge. After the big race, the animals of the forest felt excited. They wanted more races. They wanted to celebrate their strengths and work together. Hare and Tina agreed. They decided to join the next race as a team. "It will be fun," Hare said. "We can keep encouraging each other." Tina smiled. "Let's do our best." The animals gathered in the sunny meadow. They were all ready for the race. There were rabbits, squirrels, deer, and even a fox. The wise owl, Oliver, was the judge again. He flew down to the starting line and said, "Let's see who can do their best today." Hare and Tina stood together at the start. They were ready. The other animals looked at them and smiled. It was clear that Hare and Tina had become a great team. "On your marks, get set, go," Oliver called out. The race began. Hare ran fast, as always, but this time, he stayed close to Tina. He wanted to make sure they finished together. Tina was steady. She moved forward at her own pace, not rushing, but staying focused. Hare encouraged her. "You're doing great, Tina." Tina smiled. "We're doing great together." As they ran, the other animals were behind them, each with their own strengths. The rabbit was fast, the deer was graceful, and the squirrel was full of energy. But they were all cheering for each other. "Go, Tina! Go, Hare!" the animals shouted. The race was fun. It wasn't about who would win anymore. It was about doing your best and supporting each other. Hare and Tina crossed the finish line together. The crowd cheered. "We did it!" Harry said, breathing hard but happy. Together, Tina added with a smile. Oliver flew down and congratulated them. That was a wonderful race. It was not about who finished first. It was about how you all helped each other and encouraged each other. The animals nodded. They realized that each animal brought something special to the race. The rabbit was fast, the deer was strong, the squirrel was quick, and Harry and Tina worked well together. They all appreciated each other's strengths. From that day on, the races in the meadow became a regular event. Every few weeks, the animals would gather to race. It wasn't about winning. It was about joining in, having fun, and cheering each other on. Harry and Tina continued to race together. Sometimes they would run side by side, other times Harry would run ahead, but always, they made sure they finished together. The races brought the animals closer. They learned that each one had something special to offer. The rabbit was fast, but the deer was strong. The squirrel could jump high, and Harry and Tina were steady and supportive. One day, as they watched the races from the side, Harry turned to Tina. "I'm glad we're friends. I'm glad we raced together." Tina smiled. "Me too, Harry. We've learned a lot from each other." The animals cheered as the races continued. They were happy to be part of something that made them feel good about themselves and each other. They had learned that no one had to be the best. What mattered most was working together, helping each other, and having fun. After the race ended, Oliver the owl flew down to speak to the animals. "I see that you've learned something important. It's not about who wins. It's about doing your best and supporting others. The forest is stronger when we all help each other." The animals agreed. They knew that, no matter who finished first, they all shared in the victory of friendship and teamwork. And so, the races in the meadow continued, growing more popular each time. More animals joined in, and they all learned to appreciate the strengths of others. They worked together, laughed together, and cheered each other on, knowing that every race was a celebration of who they were. From then on, the animals of the forest knew that every race was a new chance to grow, learn, and become better together. And in the end, that was the most important thing of all. Chapter 12: The Power of Teamwork. One sunny morning, the animals of the forest were playing and racing in the meadow. The birds were singing, and the squirrels were jumping from tree to tree. But suddenly, the sky grew dark. The wind started to blow, and the clouds became heavy with rain. A wise old turtle named Terence walked slowly through the meadow. He looked up at the sky and knew a storm was coming. He called the animals together. "A big storm is on its way," Terence said. "We need to prepare." The animals gathered around, worried. They had never faced a storm like this before. Harry, the speedy hare, looked around and spoke up. "We need to act quickly," Harry said. "We can't do this alone. We need to work together." Tina, the slow and steady tortoise, nodded. "Yes, Harry. Together, we can do anything. Let's organize the animals." Harry and Tina decided to lead the animals in preparing for the storm. They knew that if everyone worked together, they could handle anything that came their way. First, they decided to gather food. The animals who were quick, like the rabbits and the squirrels, ran to collect fruits and vegetables. The deer and the foxes helped carry the heavy food back to a safe spot. Harry and Tina worked together, making sure that everyone had what they needed. "Keep moving, everyone. We have to gather as much food as we can," Harry called out. Tina helped organize the food, making sure there was enough for everyone. "Let's stack it all neatly. We'll need it after the storm." Once the food was collected, it was time to build shelters. The birds helped by flying to find strong branches. The beavers worked together to gather sticks and leaves. The rabbits dug holes for the shelter foundations. The squirrels climbed trees to gather leaves for the roof. "We need a roof that will keep us dry," Tina said. "Let's work together and make sure it's strong." Harry dashed around, making sure everyone knew what to do. You gather the branches. You collect the leaves. Let's get this done fast. The animals worked hard, and soon, a row of shelters began to take shape. Everyone had a role to play. The small animals worked quickly, while the larger animals used their strength to carry heavy materials. Harry and Tina checked on the shelters as they were being built. Great job, everyone, Harry said, proud of the work the animals had done. As the storm grew closer, the wind picked up, and the clouds darkened. The animals finished their shelters just in time. They all gathered inside, safe and dry. The storm raged outside, with strong winds and heavy rain. But inside their shelters, the animals felt safe. They knew that they had worked together to prepare, and they were ready for anything. It's amazing how much we can do when we work together, Tina said, smiling. I know, Harry replied. We couldn't have done it without everyone's help. The animals sat together in their shelters, listening to the storm outside. They were all tired, but they were also proud. They had faced a big challenge, and they had done it together. They had worked as a team. As the storm continued through the night, the animals stayed inside, sharing stories and talking about their teamwork. They knew that the storm would pass, and they would be stronger because of what they had accomplished. The next morning, the storm finally stopped. The sun came out, and the animals stepped outside to see the damage. There were a few fallen branches and leaves scattered across the meadow, but the shelters were still standing strong. Look at what we did, Harry said. We made it through because we worked together. Tina smiled. We did. Teamwork made us stronger. We all played an important role. The animals gathered in the meadow to celebrate. They hugged each other and cheered for their hard work. They knew that no matter what challenges they faced in the future, they could always rely on each other. From that day on, the animals in the forest knew the true power of teamwork. They understood that working together made them stronger and that every animal had something special to contribute. The storm had taught them an important lesson. They learned that when they worked as a team, they could overcome anything. The animals were closer than ever before, and they knew that no challenge was too big if they faced it together. And so, the animals of the forest continued to work together, helping each other, supporting each other, and growing stronger every day. They knew that the power of teamwork could get them through anything life might throw their way. Chapter 13, The Storm Passes. The storm had arrived quickly. The wind howled through the trees, and the clouds grew dark. The animals of the forest rushed to prepare. They had worked together to gather food and build shelters. Now, they took cover, waiting for the storm to pass. In their shelters, the animals stayed safe. The rabbits, squirrels, and birds huddled together in their cozy homes. The larger animals like the deer and foxes rested in strong shelters made from branches and leaves. Hare the hare and Tina the tortoise were in their shelter, too, glad that they had worked as a team. The storm is loud, Hare said. But we're safe here. Tina nodded. We did well to prepare. Now, we just need to wait. The storm raged outside. The wind howled, and the rain poured down in sheets. But inside their shelters, the animals felt secure. They knew that the teamwork they had shown had made them ready for this storm. As the hours passed, the storm grew stronger. The wind shook the trees, and the rain beat against the ground. But the animals held steady in their shelters, calm and safe. They had done their best to get ready, and now they could trust that they had done all they could. Finally, after a long night, the storm began to die down. The wind slowed, and the rain became lighter. The animals, still in their shelters, listened closely. The sounds of the storm faded away, replaced by a peaceful quiet. The storm is almost over, Tina said. We should check outside. Hare stood up. Let's make sure everything is okay. The animals slowly emerged from their shelters. They looked around, taking in the calm after the storm. The sky had cleared, and the sun was starting to peek through the clouds. The meadow was wet, but there was no major damage. The trees had bent in the wind but remained standing. The animals had done well. "We're safe," Hare cheered. "The storm passed, and we're all okay." The other animals came out of their shelters, looking around. They were happy to see that their home was safe. The animals who had gathered food helped distribute it, sharing the food they had collected the day before. They felt proud of their hard work. The animals came together in the meadow, standing in a circle. They smiled at each other, grateful for the teamwork that had helped them through the storm. "We did it," Tina said. "We worked together and got through this." "We were ready because we helped each other," Hare added. "We all played an important part." The animals agreed. They had faced the storm with courage, and now they were celebrating. They had learned that teamwork was powerful. They had learned that working together made them strong. "We have so much to be thankful for," said the wise owl, Oliver. "You worked together and kept each other safe. That's what makes this forest so special. You all have something to offer, and when you work together, there's nothing you can't do." The animals smiled, knowing that they had learned something important. They had learned that when they came together, they could face anything. They didn't need to do everything alone. They had each other, and that made them strong. As the sun rose higher, the animals felt joy in their hearts. The storm had passed, and everything was calm again. They could now relax and enjoy the peace they had earned. The animals spent the rest of the day in the meadow, talking and laughing. They shared stories about the storm and about their teamwork. They knew that no matter what challenges came next, they would face them together. The forest was quiet now, but the animals knew they had learned a valuable lesson. Teamwork made them stronger. They would always help each other, no matter what. The storm had passed, but the friendships and lessons it brought would stay with them forever. And from that day on, the animals knew that together, they could handle anything that came their way. Chapter 14: The Lasting Bond. After the big storm, Hare and Tina became even closer friends. They had faced a challenge together and learned the power of teamwork. Their friendship grew stronger every day. They no longer raced to prove who was the fastest. Instead, they raced for fun. Each morning, Hare and Tina would meet in the meadow. They would stretch their legs and prepare for their race. Hare was fast and Tina was slow, but it didn't matter. They were happy to be together, enjoying the day. "Ready, Tina?" Hare asked, grinning. Tina smiled back. "Ready, Hare. Let's see who can enjoy the race the most." They would start at the same spot, and then they would race around the meadow. Hare would speed ahead, and Tina would follow slowly, step by step. They didn't worry about who would win. Instead, they laughed and enjoyed the time they spent together. Sometimes, when Hare was far ahead, he would stop and wait for Tina. He would cheer her on, saying, "You're doing great, Tina." Tina would smile and say, "Thanks, Hare. I'm not as fast, but I'm having fun." They would race together for hours, their laughter filling the meadow. The animals of the forest would watch them and smile. They could see how happy Hare and Tina were. It wasn't about being the fastest anymore. It was about enjoying each other's company and having fun. One afternoon, the animals decided to join in. They wanted to race too. The squirrels, rabbits, and even the deer lined up to race. It was a big race, with everyone cheering each other on. Hare and Tina led the way, but this time, it wasn't just about them. It was about all the animals working together and having fun. The race began, and the meadow was filled with excitement. Hare zoomed ahead, his speed amazing as always. Tina followed at her steady pace, enjoying the feeling of running with her friends. All around them, the other animals were racing too. The air was full of laughter, shouts of encouragement, and the sound of paws and hooves hitting the ground. Hare and Tina didn't try to win. They didn't care about being the fastest. They raced side by side, enjoying the feeling of moving together. The other animals saw them and decided to join in, running beside their friends instead of focusing only on winning. When the race ended, there was no winner. Everyone was smiling. The animals gathered together and cheered for each other. That was so much fun. Hare said. I'm glad we all joined in. Tina nodded. Yes, it was wonderful. We all helped each other. The animals agreed. It wasn't about who finished first. It was about having fun and working together. Hare and Tina had learned that racing wasn't just about winning. It was about enjoying the journey and sharing the experience with friends. From that day on, the races in the meadow became a regular event. The animals raced for fun, not for competition. They would race together, cheer for each other, and enjoy the time they spent together. Hare and Tina's friendship was stronger than ever. They were no longer just racing partners, they were best friends. They had learned that being together was more important than being the fastest. They had shared their lessons with the other animals, and now, every race was a celebration of friendship. The meadow was full of laughter and joy. The animals worked together and helped each other, just like Hare and Tina had done. The bond they shared grew every day, and they knew they could count on each other, no matter what. Hare and Tina spent many more days racing, playing, and laughing together. They knew that, no matter how fast or slow they were, they would always have each other's support. Their friendship was the greatest prize of all, and they cherished it every day. As the years passed, the races continued. The animals of the forest had learned a valuable lesson. It wasn't about being the best or the fastest. It was about being there for each other, working together, and enjoying every moment. The lasting bond between Hare and Tina was a symbol of that lesson. Their friendship showed the forest that teamwork, kindness, and support could overcome any challenge. And no matter how much time passed, that bond would remain forever strong.